there will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
It's an exciting time to be involved in Bitcoin Cash at the moment.
During that whole war of Lightning versus big blocks, like, will we the bad guys? Will we the ones that weren't listening?
Fundamentally, we believe in markets, transparency, and tokenization.
Come on, you gotta come stronger than that, you know, like...
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast. Following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. Shout out to 2 Dick Pete 1 GTX gang. Let's go. First one in the chat. Brilliant. You'd love to see it. I'm your host, Jeremy. Jett is doing the producing. Same as always. This is episode number 70, the second anniversary featuring CheapLightning. Today is Friday, the 27th of January 2023. I think it was technically the 23rd, maybe, or the 21st. I think it might be the 23rd. So we're definitely past the 2-year line at the moment. Our guest is the most common, the most recurring, most frequent guest on the show of all time. I believe 4 appearances, maybe 5, including today.
I think this is 4. I might have done a multi. I'm not sure, but I counted 4 anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, obviously the most qualified guest to be back for some nice inside baseball chat for our 2-year anniversary. So thank you very much to everybody who has listened to the show, stuck through it all this time. Time flies. Well, kind of unbelievable that it's actually 2 years, but we will chat a little bit about the last year of the show as well. I don't want to make it too meta in that way, because we did just have the Christmas episode recently as well too. So there's only so much kind of retreading over like, oh, what happened in the last year that you can do. But we'll chat at least a little bit about it. But anyway, CheapLightning, for people who don't know you, if they're tuning in, this is their first ever episode. Give us an update on where you're at and what are you doing in the BCH community.
That's a very difficult question to sum up in a very short period of time. Check out episode number 27 for my full intro, and also I have a read.cash post about my Bitcoin history, which is called that's interesting. Isn't this interesting? I think so. Check out my read.cash post. But yeah, I've been in the space for a long time. I got into Bitcoin in 2011. I was there at the fork. Actually, just on a little bit of a tangent, I was looking for some old, really memeable content because at some point the BTC guys were like, actually, Satoshi meant cash, like cachet from the French meaning. And so I was like trolling through Reddit history trying to find who said that post, and I ended up finding my original Reddit post when I decided to stop being a lurker and actually post. And my first comment ever on Reddit was, "One is mine," and that's because I was running an ABC node on fork day. So yeah, I've been in the space since day one, literally. And currently I'm doing a bunch of stuff, moderate a bunch of chats. I'm working on 3 different BCH projects behind the scenes that aren't public yet, but one is I'm going to announce right now. So here's some
exclusive. Let's go.
Exclusive breaking news. Jeremy, you already know about this project that I've been working on for about a year now. It's called Flipwatch.org. And basically, Flipstarters is an amazing, fantastic protocol that we have, or tool, whatever you want to call it, in the space, but accountability has been really lacking. And so for more than a year now, I've been working on this idea of trying to thread the needle of providing insight, but also not exactly judgment, which is a little bit difficult. And so the site is not quite ready yet. but hopefully very soon it'll be a lot more detailed than what's there right now. And what's there right now is an archive of Flipstarters. It's not 100% complete. There's the IPFS ones and some other ones that haven't been added, but at the very least right now it is a resource that you can go and see all of the previous Flipstarters and see what they were campaigning for, how much funding they received, and hopefully in the future you'll be able to see details about every project and what they actually delivered, which is the real crux there. Yeah, there's a few issues that have to be worked out, but for the most part it's up, so feel free to check it out. It's, I guess, fair to say it's in beta, so anyway, it's live, so you can check that out.
So what's the address that people can go and check that out?
Flipwatch.org.
Flipwatch.org. Okay, all right, brilliant. So I'm just pulling it up now. Yeah, I haven't seen this site yet. This is looking cool. Okay, a bit of a timeline here on the main screen and all that. Yeah, but I mean, obviously, as you say, it's quite a precarious thing to do in some senses, because obviously if people are trying to scam with Flipstarter, the last thing they want is basically the Flipstarter police keeping them accountable, and sort of, you know, even if the only enforcement you're going to do is just expose that they're scamming basically, and that they didn't deliver. Also because I think people, when like intention doesn't really matter all that much with it, right? Somebody can have great intentions, run a Flipstarter, get money, and then who knows, you know, their grandmother gets sick with cancer, or like any dodgy stuff could happen, right? And they genuinely might feel like, oh, I wasn't able to deliver because this or that or the other. But to the community, it doesn't matter. If you took the money, you took the money, and if you didn't deliver, you didn't deliver, you know?
Yeah, that's basically the main point of the site. I'm not going to say this project is a scam. I'm going to be just presenting evidence of what was and wasn't delivered. And of course, you know, with Flipstarter, it's when people pledge money, there's not really conditions attached to it. It's hope. You hope that people are going to deliver on the thing that they promised, and it's your reputation that's on the line, really. And so I think a really good example is the mess that happened with Sophia recently. I don't know if you saw that going on, but
Yeah.
She ran Flipstarter campaigns and got a lot of money from the community for various activities, helping people who are disadvantaged in parts of the world that are less well off than where we live. And there's quite a bit of evidence that on the surface level, and there may be deeper reasons, but she at least recycled photos, and just putting all of that information out there. You know, you can judge for yourself if it's a good use of money or not. So yeah, but you know, looking at the going through all of these, and shout out to Sayoshi Nakamario. He did all the dev work there. Looking through all the historic Flipstarters, there's a lot that just went poof, right? They just they got all this money, and what happened to it? Where did it go? There's so far been no real easy way to find that out unless you do a lot of digging, and the whole point is just like make information more accessible to everyone, just compile it all into one place. So
yeah, and I think this is a service that has been very, very badly needed, because while Flipstarter technically has the foundation actually works and is pretty solid. So in one sense, I'm, already impressed with it that it's got that far, but then there clearly does need to be a social layer over on sort of surrounding tools and so on. And I also think we're more likely to get, because once we have this sort of accountability type of platform, I will not be surprised, and I really hope we see in the future a trend towards people running smaller Flipstarters with, staged delivery, basically. So instead of, I need 100 BCH right now to do whatever, instead, give me 10 BCH. Here's the plan, for 100 BCH, but give me 10 BCH. I'll deliver the first chunk, then give me 10, then I'll deliver, because that is how you can have some sort of accountability from the community. And I think that would make a huge difference to how much value we get out of the funds that go into it, essentially. And it is impressive that the BCH community has this tool. Like, no other community has anything similar to it that I'm aware of. But obviously, we need to tune that up and make it more efficient and more valuable, essentially, by all the sort of surrounding services. So, yeah, I think there's a lot that can be done in that regard. But it's just it's a somebody problem. Nobody's been out there tackling it until you right now recently. So, yeah, hats off for that. It should make a huge difference, I think, actually. And speaking of the Satoshi Nakamorio, who does a ton of good work in the community, because this is our 2-year anniversary, we're also going to give away a t-shirt. I have it here. This is
nice.
This BitcoinCash Wizard t-shirt. It's really cool. It's in a size medium, I think. So just, if you're a standard sized person, probably could be a good size for you. So the t-shirt comes from Swagme.cash, which is a BCH merch site that Satoshi Nakamorio is involved in running. This is an unpaid shout out. Somebody asked me about the bestsellers.cash shout out we did as well too. That was also unpaid. I just did that to help out Foad. I will let the listeners know if I'm getting paid to shill anything on this show. But anyway, Jett and I got a t-shirt each, and now we've got a one to give away as well too. So here's how it's going to work. All you have to do is email your name and postal address, so I know where to send it, obviously, to, plus your best Bitcoin story to Jeremy at bitcoincashpodcast.com. So whoever has the best story about Bitcoin, it can be anything. It could be funny. It could be a disaster where you lost all your money in, an exchange, or it could be emotional. I found these old keys and then I saved, some starving children. Like, whatever it is, I don't mind. Whatever kind of story it is, whoever has the best story as judged by me will get this t-shirt. So you can email into Jeremy at bitcoincashpodcast.com with your Bitcoin stories, and I'll pick one that I like and send it out. So there's also a 15% off coupon, BCH podcast, all lowercase letters, BCH podcast. So that gets you 15% off at Swagme.cash, and they're also having a 10% off BCH discount until February the 25th. So you can get a full 25% off by shopping at Swagme.cash at the moment. So yeah, if you're
I wish I waited.
interested in that, well, time to buy some more, mate.
Yeah. And just so everyone knows, these are human size shirts. So I got the be someone shirt, and it's clearly not cat sized. So they're human size shirts. So just be aware of that if you're gonna buy one.
But cats love human size shirts. They kind of go in and sit in them, and like it's really warm and whatever. So yeah, even if you are a feline, it could also work for you as well too. So everyone is included as part of these sales. All right, I'm looking forward to whoever sends in those stories. And if only one person sends in a story, you win. So it might be worth just sending in like I love Bitcoin or something, and your name and address. You could. This is not a huge show. We don't have millions of listeners, right? So you could always sneak.
I'm gonna try
like that.
I'm gonna try.
Yes. Well, Jett can't enter because otherwise that would be in internal dealings, but you can definitely win. Still, there's no like time limit, so you haven't got it. Well, it's until the next episode of the show probably, so you don't have any advantage by being on now. Right, on with the price. So this week, Bitcoin Cash USD $134.80, so that's up. One BTC is 170.3 BCH, so we're down a little bit, and one Ethereum is 11.7 BCH. So BCH on the rise against Ethereum, but not Bitcoin this week. And I'm kind of feeling like, yeah, maybe we have hit the bottom. Maybe that $100, $98, $95, whatever it was, maybe that was the bottom, and we're just gonna trend along kind of sideways, slightly bullish for 2023, and then go to the moon in 2024. And I've been very hesitant to, make any proclamation that the worst is over. But at least I'm starting to get that feeling. I don't know. What do you think? How are you seeing the markets these days?
I'm a cynic, but I do have a long position on bchbull.com. So, despite being a cynic, I do think that it is going to go up at least a little bit more. Whether it stays is a different story, but I'm long for the short term anyway. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I think we see a lot of is you still see people having a huge panic about it. It's funny, once it's already dropped 95%, you have people starting up like, this is just the beginning. It's a disaster. Look at how many scams there've been. We're going, it's going to be $10 a coin. Bitcoin's going to be under $5,000. Blah, 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 blah. Like, the worse it gets, it should be the inverse. It should be the worse it gets, the lower the chances are that it's going to go lower. But instead, it's the opposite. People just assume the trend will continue forever. And the worse it gets, the more bearish they get, because they've already been wrecked and they're depressed and sad about it. But, so I don't know. But I'm still seeing a lot of that, which to me is actually a strong indicator that we're past the bottom. We're definitely past the bottom once we've been completely wrecked and everybody is still refusing to turn optimistic. That's when it actually does get optimistic. So yeah, I'm hopeful. And certainly in the last 2 years of the show, it hasn't been like, I think when the show started, BitcoinCat was at like $400, something like that. So we're going to have to push through and get a full 4 years in before we're hopefully in the green overall for the price action. So speaking of that, it's 2 years of the Bitcoin Cash podcast. I've got some picks here that I've made on the episode last year when we did 1 year anniversary. We talked about the best 3 episodes, and I've picked 3 episodes that were my favorite from new listeners of the show could check out or be interested in. So my top picks were episode number 65, which was BCH 2022 review and crypto politics, featuring MP Rolando Brison, Romit, and Bitcoin Jason. So that was the live episode we did in St. Kitts. Then my second favorite episode was number 50, Celsius Collapse and Node Dev, featuring Josh Ellithorpe. That was amazing. He's such an insightful guy and he's been in the scene such a long time. Some super interesting stories there from the internal workings at Coinbase around the time of the fork, and a lot of chat about proof of work versus proof of stake, which is obviously very topical or has been in crypto. And then my last pick was number 69, the BCHN and cash tokens with Callan Culiano, which was the most recent episode. I personally enjoyed that one a lot, actually. And we had a good chat about the possible identity of Satoshi. And I learned quite a bit that I didn't know about how Node Dev works and all that. So if listeners to the show are just tuning in for the first time, or if you missed any of those episodes, they might be good ones to go back to. But I asked you, CheapLightning, as well to come up with a list of, do you have a top 3 episodes to recommend?
Yeah. Sorry, I don't have the episode numbers. I can just remember the guests offhand, but I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later as well. But I really enjoyed hearing the perspective of I guess new blood to the community. So your chats with Fiendish, your chats with Callisti, and then also I really enjoyed, from an entertainment point of view, I'm not sure if it was particularly the most I guess BCH centric episode, but your episode with I think her name was Jenny that you met at a meetup in London or something.
Yeah.
Someone who is an outsider, open. She seemed quite open-minded, but is from outside of the space. And hearing her perspective in a calm, logical discussion was great, and I really enjoyed listening to that show. So those are my three.
Okay, so we got this for the posterity. So that's number 47. UST depegging cryptocalypse and humanitarian Bitcoin feat Jenny. I wonder how she's doing. Actually, I should follow up with her. It's been a while since we had a chat. She had a birthday party in London and the theme was cults. So people could dress up as like cult. I think she had like a bit of this like BDSM like sex cult kind of vibe for her outfit, so that was clearly what she'd had in mind. But she gave Bitcoin as an example of one of the things that you could do, right? So of course I went as BitcoinCash representative cult member. And it was funny because and I met a couple of guys there. It was funny because I got I'm outside the apartment and everything. I showed up and I was wearing like BitcoinCash stuff and everything like that, and these two guys came and said, "Oh, you going to this party?" They looked like they were trying to find the place, and they were like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Oh, what's with the outfit?" And I was like, "Well, I'm a BitcoinCash cult member." And they were like, "Oh, okay," because they didn't have anything. They just showed up as like themselves. And I just kind of, what is going on here, guys? If you're gonna do a fancy dress party, you got to commit. That's
right.
If you show up to a fancy dress party without an outfit and just like I couldn't be bothered, that's
you
pretty
don't go
lame.
to an S&M party without at least wearing black. Like, come on, put in the minimum effort, right?
Yeah, exactly. But that was actually a really good party, though. I had a great time. I met there was a few crypto people. There was a bit of a crypto theme, because she's into crypto. Her boyfriend is this really big BTC maximalist guy. So we had this really interesting debate where he was pretty fervent about it, to be honest, but he was also he was still willing to listen, which was good. And he said, "Look, I trust you more than Cardano scammers." So at least we had that that same page. He thought BitcoinCash had obviously got a bit misguided, but he was still willing to consider us part of the Bitcoin family. Anyway, I should catch up with what she's been up to. Maybe we can have her back on and find out what's new in her world. Okay, so then we had that one. We had the one with Fiendish, which was number 57, community narratives and BCH content creation, featuring Fiendish crypto. And then Callisti was on the Christmas episode, number 67, State of the Revolution 2022, featuring Callisti and Ryan Giffen. So check those ones out if you trust CheapLightning's recommendations more than mine. Unbiased listener take. And Jett, also you got to give your recommendations too. What were the best 3 episodes?
So this is really difficult for me. I think the one with Josh is my all-time favorite. But I think the hearing MP Brison like walk through his reasons why he's even involved, I think is like, that was so fantastic. So I don't know, man. Those ones are like either 1 and 2 or just tied for number 1. I think the episode that we did with Brian Harrington was really like good too. I think that one was the first time that I like gave a shit about what a BTC Maxi had to say. Like, it wasn't just this toxic trolling. Like, it seemed very productive. So I like that. The other one, I think, like the other contender for the top 3, I think, might be like from not the past year, but the year before that. And that was that big group. We had CheapLightning was on, iMutename was on. I think we had like
Emergent Reasons and Bennett Tomlin.
Yeah.
That was fun.
I think that's
all right. So that's episode 41, BTC and BCH dialogue featuring Brian Harrington. That was a really good one. I was tempted when I was looking down the list to put that in my top 3. That was maybe an honorable mention from my point of view. I think it's quite interesting that you and I had quite similar picks, and then CheapLightning went with different ones. Maybe being on the show changes it, as to how you experience it versus just listening to it fresh out. And then the other one was the round table, right? Number 32, the round table featuring CheapLightning, imaginary username Bennett Tomlin. I think we maybe had
Was that
Emergent
2022
Reasons on
or
that
was
one as well too.
2021?
That was 2021, November the 17th.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's an old one. So yeah,
That's
that
out.
one doesn't. Yeah, that's you can't pick
No.
that. That doesn't qualify. But anyway, still a good episode if people want to go and check it out. So there you go. Between all those recommendations, if you need a bit more podcast and we're a bit slack about putting out new episodes, there you've got some good ones that you can look back at and get your fill of it. So I also thought from the last year, I also wanted to call out, just for the regular listeners, we will be bringing back some of these little regular segments we've got going on. So the meme competition with Luke Pryor, I talked to him the other day, and we will do another meme competition this year. So you can watch out for that. I don't know when it's going to be, but we will do it. And he said he's got some new thoughts and stuff on the industry. So looking forward to having him back on the show. We will do a listener survey, just like we did last year. I thought that was a smash hit. I don't know if we're going to ask exactly the same questions, probably mostly the same questions, maybe a couple of new ones, and then we can get some year-over-year data in that. So I'm really looking forward to that. Ryan Giffen will be back on at the end of April. He didn't get to say much on the Christmas episode because we were interrupting his anniversary dinner.
Oh my God.
That was commitment to the bit that he even came on at all. But we will obviously catch up with him at the end of April, like we do every year. That'll be the third time. So yeah, he's certainly a regular. And obviously we'll do a State of the Revolution Christmas episode as well in year 3, just like we did in year 1 and 2. So for any regular listeners who enjoy those recurring tropes, you can look forward to those. And yeah, that's it really. So in considering these podcasts and not trying to be too meta and reminiscent about it, I thought, look, maybe let's take a bit of a look at podcasts as a whole and find some of the stats and what goes on in the world of podcasting. So I've got a few statistics here. So as of 2021, Sweden is the number 1 country in the world for podcast consumption, followed by Ireland and Brazil. I don't know how they determine that. I guess maybe by percentage of the population that actively listens, like Sweden, Ireland. Yeah, per capita podcasters. I'm not sure how they determine it, but that was quite interesting to me. Over 1/3, 104 million Americans listen to podcasts regularly. So I wonder if that will keep growing, right? Podcasting has been a growing medium, and certainly more and more people, I would say, are unplugging from their TV or even just the generic radio stations and getting in on podcasting, right? Is it like, it probably wouldn't get to 100%, but could it get to more than half? Probably. It's a pretty diverse medium. 28% of US adults listen to podcasts while driving. That's interesting. 73% listen to podcasts on their smartphone or their cell phone. And there are currently 449,041 active podcasts on Apple Podcasts as of January 2023. So that means they've put out at least 1 episode in the last 90 days, which is a pretty low bar, to be honest. I mean, if your podcast only comes out once every 3 months, that's pretty slack, I think. But anyway, there's nearly 450,000 active podcasts. And I tried to find what is the BitcoinCash podcast, like what rank are we in that? The global leaderboard. I want to know what that number is. We're number 400,000, and then we can try and get up to number 1. But the charts they have only go for the top couple hundred. So we are number. You can get like in subcategories, right? So we're apparently number 226 on Apple Podcasts in Finland for entrepreneurship, number 207 on Apple Podcasts in Greece for entrepreneurship, number 109 in Apple Podcasts in Iceland for business, and number 20 Apple Podcasts in Iceland for entrepreneurship. So I don't know, a lot of European entrepreneurs apparently loving our show. So that's just some fun facts there. But I thought maybe we could also just chat a bit about CheapLightning. I guess, do you listen to podcasts a lot, but like besides the Bitcoin Cash podcast? Do you have any other podcasts you want to recommend or shout out to listeners? What catches your listening fancy?
No.
No, okay.
No.
Wasn't expecting that, really.
Yeah. I listen to your podcast. There's nothing I listen to regularly. From time to time, someone will suggest an episode of something or whatever. I'm not into any of those like murder mysteries or any of that sort of thing. I do follow a few people on YouTube that provide more educational versus entertainment content, which is similar, right? It's not I'm not listening, I'm watching. I mean, I'm listening, but it's usually a video audio combo like your podcast. But no, I don't listen to podcasts. I used to listen to 538, which is a pretty famous political podcast, but once the Trump era started, it was just too much. I don't need any more of this in my life, so I stopped tuning in. The drama was just too much. It was less about interesting things and more just about, oh my God, he said this, and I don't, that's not. I don't find that educational, right? So yeah, I think a lot of the content that I consume is more leaning towards educational nonfiction sort of thing than fictional stuff. And the same with books. I read a lot of nonfiction. So there you go. Sorry.
Super interesting. No, because you listen to the only podcast that matters.
That matters, yeah.
So that's fuck the rest of them. Like I don't care. We want a lot of people like that. We want a lot of we must be doing something right if people go out of their way to a medium that they're not usually engaged in. But I just thought this was an interesting thing to sort of consider and reflect on, because while I was in Australia over Christmas, I was spending obviously more time with my family that I haven't seen in a while, and my brother, he was listening to Hamish and Andy, so I got to give a big shout out to them. They're this comedy duo in Australia. They're super famous in Australia and unknown everywhere else in the world, but they had a radio show for many years, and now they do a podcast where they just talking shit and have all these little skits and call-ins and stuff like that. And it's fantastic for listening to on long drives. If you're commuting to Sydney or to Melbourne, it's like, an 8-hour drive or something. He was listening to a lot of that. And then my mum listens to these. She listens to the Bitcoin Cash podcast as well, but she listens to a lot of, more like you were saying, like this sort of true crime stuff. She's kind of interested in that, and also these sort of news podcasts and like personal interest kind of things. And I was fascinated listening to some of that, because podcasting is such a diverse medium, and I imagine podcasters like this show where there's a niche and a focus, and it's 2 hours, but there's people doing podcasts that are 10 minutes long, and they just do a regular thing, or there's all kinds of different stuff that is completely different to how we do it. So it made me think. Jett, what do you listen to? You listen to like some comedy podcasts. I know you're always talking about that.
Yeah, mostly just comedy podcasts. I listen to Your Mom's House, which is Tom Segura and Christina Pechkinitsky or something. I can't pronounce her last name. I listen to William Montgomery's show, Kill Tony, which is the live comedy podcast based out of Texas. We Might Be Drunk with Mark Normand and Sam Morrell. Two Bears, One Cave, Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer. This Past Weekend with Theo Vaughn. Flagrant 2, Andrew Schultz, Akash Singh. I'm sure there's more that I'm just forgetting, but it's only comedy podcasts for me.
No crypto stuff?
No, I find the crypto stuff to be exhausting, but I feel like pretty deep in the weeds with Bitcoin Cash anyway. So
You're contributing.
yeah.
Making it worse and worse. Yeah, so I got to give a shout out to a few podcasts that I listen to. I listen to, on the crypto front, sometimes Bankless a little bit, sometimes What Bitcoin Did. I enjoy both of those, but they sort of have their niche, their place. Like I don't listen to every episode or even close, but just when the mood strikes, I've got to keep abreast of the industry. The Dash podcast as well, the Digital Cash Rundown, with Joel that we've had on the show a few times. I definitely listen to that. I listen to a lot of esports stuff like League of Legends, the what's it called? Summoning Insight with Thorin and Monty, and the Four Horsemen as well, with Richard Lewis. I love those ones because, well, firstly, I just am interested in that stuff, but I think the esports and crypto are very similar industries. They often talk a lot about, traditional sports are doing this, that, and the other, and they're kind of like the young upstarts that are trying to mix it up or do something a bit different or find a way to be relevant or to appeal to a different audience, or they could adapt their medium and their content, their product, in a different way to traditional sports. Like in the pandemic, it's quite insightful, I think, in a similar way to the way that crypto is like traditional finance, but we call it traditional finance and then crypto, just like they call it traditional sports and then esports. And that story of how do you become, as a sort of decentralized movement, a competitor to something that already has the history and the hold on the mainstream. Yeah, I find super fascinating. So I listen to a lot of that. Sometimes I listen to Limited Resources with Marshall and LSV about Magic the Gathering and drafting. Sometimes I listen to Joe Rogan a little bit here and there. I find that quite variable. Some of his episodes are amazing, and some of them are just like, what even is this? I don't need, I don't need this. There was one recently with Siddharth Kara. I think it was about cobalt mining, human rights abuses. I highly recommend that if people are interested. Just trying to think what else. Poker in the Ears sometimes. James Hardigan, Joe Stapleton. People who like poker, you probably know that podcast. Lex Friedman once in a while. He has some good ones.
I'm subbed to him on YouTube. I watch his stuff, but I don't listen to it as a podcast.
Yeah.
He's great.
I guess. Yeah. He's it's hard to criticize because he's huge, he does a great job, and he's kind of got the benefit of being so big that he can have like the most interesting guests with no problem, but obviously he has earned his way into that, so I'm not hating, but some of his ones, he's not willing to be that opinionated. A lot of the time he's just sort of prompting and prodding them. He's not really going to push back or throw his own opinion in there so much. So I don't know, I find that a bit hard to stomach for long periods of time, because I'm like, argue back, come on Lex, get in there, instead it's more like, I just believe in love and I want to, that kind of thing. All right,
Are you setting the stage for some hard questions coming up later? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing. It's just the opposite. In all these things that I'm saying, it's I try and draw from them in how we do this show, right? So I already feel like it's quite unique in that way. The Bitcoin Cash podcast, we're going to global reserve currency, fuck everything else, like that. That's how it is, and that's completely different to some comedy podcast, which is all just like haha, laughter and banter. There's no central conflict driving it. But obviously it's a very specific taste to enjoy that or not. But anyway, that was just, I thought, a fun aside we could throw in for the 2-year anniversary episode. You can get a few recommendations for some different stuff to listen to if you're bored of my voice. droning on and on. All right, let's talk about Bitcoin Cash though. Next thing up, we got BCH is dominating on Sideshift.
Yeah.
So I've got a full quote that I got to read out here from the latest research. They published this weekly research from this service that lets you swap coins to other coins without KYC, without an exchange, basically. And here's the full quote. The absolute star of the show this week was once again the dominant shift pair of BTC to BCH. A constant stream of large shifts throughout the period allowed the pair to achieve an impressive volume of 4.1 million, making up 28.3% of the weekly total. When you consider the fact that shift count for the pair totaled just 315, or 4.9%, the consistently larger size of these user shifts becomes apparent, with an average of $13,000 per shift. For comparison, the next closest pair was more than 5 times smaller, BTC to USDT ERC20, with 533,000 total. So that was compared to 4.1 million. Due to the strength and demand of this pair, it is no wonder that BTC deposits trumped every other coin. 37.8% higher than last week, it finished in first place with a deposit volume total of 5.56 million. Mainly because of liquidity rebalancing, which was needed to fulfill the high demand of the BTC to BCH shifts, BCH deposits finished in second place with 4.1 million. This is more than double the deposit volume we had last week and nearly 10 times larger than recorded just 1 month ago. Rounding off the top three was ETH, which witnessed deposits fall an even 10% from last week to finish with 1.07 million. So yeah, I thought this was something worth bringing back. CheapLightning, why is BCH so consistently dominating on the Sideshift charts? What's going on here?
I have no idea. It's a really good question. I think Sideshift is really unique because they are a no KYC exchange. There's no derivatives. There's no lending. There's no funny business going on. It's I have this, I want that. It's completely unadulterated, I guess, by the funny business that you see in DeFi. And I don't have a good answer other than people that have BTC now on BCH. That's there's empirical evidence about that. Or one whale who has a lot of BTC is trading it for BCH. I don't know what the addresses are, but yeah, I've been paying attention to this. I hadn't read this week's news, so this is actually a surprise to me. But yeah, last week it was the same. It was $2 million or something, and yeah, somebody. I shouldn't say somebody. People are interested in trading their BTC for BCH. That's the only answer, right? I don't know if somebody has to cover shorts on another exchange, and who knows what the bigger picture is there. But you can't deny it. Somebody or many people who are using Sideshift are consistently trading BTC for BCH in large numbers, in very large numbers and large amounts. So why they would do that versus OTC, I have no idea. But maybe it's safer. I don't know. Yeah, I can only speculate, but yeah, the numbers are there. They don't lie.
Why isn't the ratio rising? That's what I also want to know, because we see these periods where it's not all the time, but it is. There was at the end of last year, I think it was like for 3 months or something like that, where BTC BCH was the number one pair, people going from BTC into BCH, and it was just dominating, and then it fell off for a few weeks, and then now we're seeing it come back up again. Is like, clearly this trend can't be representative of the entire market, right? It can't be the case that on Kraken and on Binance and on Coinbase this same trend is appearing, because if it was, BCH would have to be just rising against BCH, right, against BTC. With that many people swapping, there would be no other way. So why, that it's like, is it a leading indicator? Is it going to spread onto other exchanges? Or is it just, for some reason, there's a particular bias of the users of Sideshift to need this service? What's going on?
I wish I had a good answer. I don't know. I think a lot of it comes into play with all of the DeFi that was going on and shorting. But whoever is utilizing Sideshift is trying to acquire more BCH for some reason, and without talking to who these people are, we can only guess. I don't know if that trend is going to continue or not, but of course I want it to. So
Yeah.
everybody dump your BTC, buy BCH.
Well, with the ratio low, it's certainly a good time to do it. And yeah, like I'm not trying to put it on you that you would have an exact answer. I don't know the exact answer either, but this has been this recurring trend that I'm still mystified by. I mean, I know that the bitcoin.com wallet has the integration for Sideshift. I think they're maybe the second biggest like integration. They have a few kind of thing. And I've always wondered, is it maybe that, like, are there a lot of bitcoin.com wallet users that buy BTC to store their value and then they switch it over into BCH and then spend it around in the economy? Yeah. I don't know. Like,
but the average was $13,000, right? So that's not your average Joe buying a coffee or whatever. That's a serious amount of money per transaction, right? That's average, right? So there's a lot of transactions that are much larger than that. So yeah, the reason.
Well, it could be that there's a couple. There could have just been one transaction for a million, and then everyone else is doing $20.
Yeah, I don't know, but if it was me and I was transferring, $2 million, I wouldn't do it in one transaction. I would certainly split it up, but that's me. If you've got a couple $1 billion, $1 million means nothing to you. So, yeah, I don't know. I want to know, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll just keep an eye on it and see. But I'm hopeful that obviously the BCH ratio can rise against BTC over this kind of year, and as we're seeing the narrative kind of degenerate from the BTC maximalist side, perhaps there will be greater interest in that. But who knows? It just goes along at the rate that it goes along, I guess. And well, the promised land will come eventually. So related to that, let's talk about, we've got this very controversial news item from the BCH community this week. St. Maarten adopting TRON. So got this news article here from the St. Maarten News, which is Brison to adopt TRON legal tender legislation to Parliament of St. Maarten by the initiative law. So this came out and it immediately caused a huge stir, a huge, I don't know what's the word, kerfuffle in the BCH community. So Justin Sun and his TRON network somehow seeming to capture the heart of MP Brison to work on getting legal tender. Now, of course, in the Bitcoin Cash community, everybody was excited at the end of last year with the St. Kitts conference about legal tender for BCH being on the cards potentially in St. Maarten and or in St. Kitts. So I guess for a lot of people, it was very easy to suddenly be like, what a traitor, he's sold out and, changed his allegiance and whatever. I have to caution everyone against that. I think it's very easy to jump to conclusions, and that's certainly not the case that something like this comes out and then everybody has all the facts immediately. So I think everybody needs to just settle down a little bit. MP Brison has agreed to come on the show on the next episode, so we will be able to get his take on it and his version of what's going on there. But the initial sort of points that he was making was that because this TRON legislation has already been adopted or passed or whatever in Dominica, that it would be easier for him to start there and then kind of get Bitcoin Cash in afterwards, I think was sort of the idea. But I think this issue with playing into multiple chains or doing it a certain way, even though it wasn't to me totally justified that he got immediately as much lashback as he did, I think it's also something that we as a community need to think about very carefully, because like the Bitcoin Cash community is very loyal and very passionate, but also very quick to judge, right? And it will just jump on anybody who's doing anything that seems to be, not exactly the way that we expected. And that's not a great way to recruit, lots of supporters. Not everybody is going to be Bitcoin Cash is the best and everything else is a scam, zero interest in every other chain, right? For the hardcore here, that's how it's going to be. But for everybody else, that's not. And we need a lot of people who are allied or involved in the community or working to improve things. And they're not going to stay like that if, as soon as they show any interest in any other coin or any other thing, or who knows what's going on, then suddenly, even before they have a chance to really put out any information, everybody's jumping down their throats, right? That's that's just going to put people off, and it's not something that we should be encouraging. Now, that said, the responsibility does also lie partially on MP Brison, I think, to understand that with all the stuff he did, coming on this show and with being at the conference and with promoting BCH and hyping it up, he could have given more of a head, because if he said in advance, oh guys, I'm also working on this TRON thing, and everybody heard about that and knew about it, they kind of might have been prepared. And then when the news came out, it wouldn't have been like some shock of like, oh, okay, now it's just fly by night operator that's on to the next coin. But in the same way, I think the community needs to be aware of that. If we're going to expect people to deal with the community in that way, then it's also beholden on us to help educate, because this is going to happen in the future. We're going to have politicians, or we're going to have business leaders, or anybody joining the community and making quite a lot of noise. And if they're going to do that, perhaps we need to be proactive about getting the advice, like, okay, you got to understand what you're getting into. Like, you potentially tapping into something very powerful, but you're going to have to treat it responsibly. And you need to understand the values of the community and what they're going to respond to. Otherwise, you might end up in a situation like this. So that's some of my thoughts. CheapLightning, what did you make of all this?
There's a lot to unpack. I think we can get pretty meta and be like, well, if everyone in the world is going to be using BCH, then what some people say in Telegram don't matter, right? If he believes in BCH for its stated purposes, what a bunch of angry people in Telegram say doesn't matter. It works, right? And he has said that he still gets his salary in BCH. He still loves BCH, et cetera, et cetera. I personally don't care so much about if TRON gets legislation first or anything along those lines. I do take issue in how he dealt with the community, and that's my biggest, I guess, anger point or dissatisfaction point is after the conference he basically went radio dark, and he said that he lost his phone, but that seems like a very high school kind of excuse to me. Oh, my dog ate my homework kind of thing, right? I'm 100% sure that if he had lost his phone as a member of parliament, he would have gotten another phone or a new SIM card or whatever the next day. So what that really means is he didn't take the time and effort to log into his social media accounts because he was busy or whatever. That's not what he said, though. He said, I lost my phone, as if that is a valid excuse. Well, it's not. It sounds better than I decided not to communicate, right? But I take issue with just brushing it under the rug. I lost my phone. It's fine. Don't talk about it. It's fine. And then when he did, join the conversation, it was like, oh, the community needs to not jump to conclusions, and the community, if another politician saw this, they would immediately sell all their BCH and leave, is what he said, right? And it's like, well, if you really believe that BCH is what it is, then again, what a bunch of people say in Telegram isn't going to matter, right? There's just a bunch of people that have opinions, right? I don't sell my BCH because people in the community are nasty, and there are some nasty people. Like, I deal with them all the time, but that has nothing to do with my faith in the project, right? The purpose of the project. If you're going to use BCH, you have to understand that people from all walks of life, from every corner of the earth, are going to use it, including people that you are diametrically opposed to on the most sacred issues to you, right? You're red, you're blue, you're purple, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? You use BCH because it works as money. As I think for a lot of people, it doesn't matter so much to me personally, but a tiny bit. I think a lot of people were quite angry because it's TRON. If he had said Dash, or if he had said Nano or something, or Monero or something, people wouldn't have been so angry. They would have been disappointed. But TRON has quite a reputation, specifically of Justin Sun bribing people and not paying. And so there's a lot of angry people out there who have very strong negative opinions about TRON. I don't personally, but I understand why people do. And so just, to me, it boils down to the lack of communication, the excuses, and then finally, for some people, the choice of TRON, which they see as not a legitimate cryptocurrency. It's a proof of stake. It's controlled by one company. The co-founder left because he said it was centralized, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't really follow in the spirit of cryptocurrency, which people that are interested in BCH hold very dear. And I haven't dug too deep into it, but the stated reason, he said, was it's easier to adopt because it's in legislation in Dominica. I haven't been able to find any actual official documents that support that. I know it's been in the news everywhere, but I have yet to see the actual legislation or the wording of the legislation. And that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means I can't find it. So if somebody does know where that is, please send me a link. I'm curious to read the details of it. The one thing I did read said that, it was TRON, but it also was kind of cryptocurrency. I really want to know what the wording is. But I have to read the actual legislation to see what the details of that are. But I do also agree that, people in every community, but, especially BCH, and BTC probably, I should say all the Bitcoin forks, let's include SV and eCash in there as well, are extremely passionate. They're extremely tribal. And at the first sign of trouble, people, shout, "It's a fucking scam," right? It's not necessarily a scam. I agree. Please, settle down, wait for everything to come out, before you do a witch hunt. But at the same time, I am going to hold him to task for how he went about this. I'm a little bit protective of the community, and it felt like he was blaming the community and for things that I don't think were fair, especially since he wasn't communicating at all. So that's my stance.
Well, yeah, that's something I think this is very important to understand, is that as much as everybody will get up in arms and shout, "Oh, it's a scam," or "there's bad actors," or "there's something going on behind the scenes," or "we don't have transparency about this and that," people don't do that from nothing. There is a very long and complicated history of both in crypto itself and in BCH of bad actors and nefarious deals being done and exchanges blowing up and all of that. And I think people are only in a position to be sort of disappointed with MP Brison because he did such a good job initially. If he hadn't done a good job with his initial approach to the community and really seemingly to understand the culture and the values about transparency and peer-to-peer cash and not just every crypto scam under the sun and the long history of how things had got to the point where they're at. Because he did all of that, I guess it gave him a bit less thin ice to tread on, because people are going to hold him to that higher standard, right? They're not just going to be like, oh, if somebody came in and they kind of didn't really get it, and then they kind of didn't really get it when they did something wrong either, that would also make sense. But I guess you can't win those allies or get that support by being so, genuine and true to the project, and then try and write off when things are the shoes on the other foot, such as it was. I don't know, Jett, did you have a take on this? What did you think?
I did, but I feel increasingly like the outsider here. So it was weird to watch all of that, because it was kind of it was after the fact for me. Like the dust had already kind of settled already by the time that I saw how everything went down. And it's weird because I think I understand, like, I feel like there's like four or five different sides to the conversation, and I think I understand every bit of them, and I don't think anyone behaved properly at all.
No.
No. I've said this before, like on the podcast. I think the BCH community in particular is a little too autistic. But by that I mean like stubborn, essentially. Like we're all convinced in our own, we've worked for however many years to get here. Like we want to see that through. So I understand the protectiveness of that. I understand feeling betrayed by seeing what happens and that kind of initial response. I understand, I think, the back and forth between like the admins and Sonny, and Sonny getting frustrated because Brison is his friend, and it was just, I think at the end of the day, everyone should recognize that, like, we are just regular ass people. Like, no one's actually special here in this group. No one's going to behave properly all the time. Everyone's going to have their own reasons for doing things. And I also don't give a shit about what other countries want to do. Like, and this was kind of, people gave me a little bit of shit over this too, for even the supporting an alternative like privacy implementation with Chris's CoinJoin stuff. More options is more gooder to me. I understand people are like, oh, it's fragmented and it's divisive, but if someone wants to use TRON while they're in St. Maarten, good. That's less reliance on the fiat system. So all the more power to them. And I don't think this is like BCH getting abandoned. And I also think if I were, depending on my mood, if I were Brison and I got into the chat and saw how that went, I would have like been like, fuck you, I'm out, drop the mic. I wouldn't have sold my coins, but I would have been done dealing with the community at that point.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really key part to this, right? Is that the whole idea of, you see that a lot, I think. Once people get in some kind of battle or in some grief or something inside the Bitcoin Cash community, one of the go-to things is, fine, I'm going to sell my own coins and go do my own thing and screw you, right? And why do people go to that? Well, it's because if they're talking to somebody else in the Bitcoin Cash community, they probably don't have any leverage. Like, there's no like, oh, I'm actually your friend, so I can, stop hanging out with you until you realize, that behavior wasn't okay, or we don't have a business relationship, or we don't have, some other link, between the two of us, which is naturally when people disagree, they sort of put the pressure on that link to show that they're unhappy, right? So if you don't have that and it's just somebody on Telegram or somebody who's roughly in the Bitcoin Cash community, then one way to sort of get back at them, in quotation marks, is to kind of say, well, fine, you care about Bitcoin Cash, so I'm going to hurt Bitcoin Cash, and therefore that'll teach you. That's one of the most common sort of response. Of course, that's completely ridiculous, because the Bitcoin Cash community doesn't care. Okay, sell your coins. Like, nothing's going to change, really. Like, you're just hurting yourself if you're disengaging from the good thing that's what's going on, and you're probably also doing a lot of more damage to yourself rather than to anybody else, because then next time, when you come back and you want to be more involved, people will always remember, oh yeah, okay, well, person X or Y set you off with some Telegram comments, and you just bailed out because of that. You kind of couldn't see past that and just say, okay, well, that's that one person, let me just ignore them or move on without that, right? But to the extent that we can, I think it's important to try and make these things, known, or to educate people about this kind of phenomenon, because it doesn't have to repeat over and over and over again. Certainly, as the Bitcoin Cash community gets bigger and there's more people involved, well, on one hand, that kind of helps because it dilutes things out. Like, whatever drama is going on in a Telegram group, whoever is doing these side shifts, they probably are completely unaware of that, right?
Yeah, it doesn't
that's the whole point. When you go to the Bitcoin Cash network itself, you're only, you're getting the promise that you can send your coins and it'll work, right? Which it does. And that all just carries on independent of any drama. And that's the critical thing. And there's loads of people that are involved in Bitcoin Cash who have no idea about any of this stuff. And that's the way it should be, right? But for the people who are more invested and more down the rabbit hole, it's very important that we get good at, ameliorating, or not mollifying exactly, but handling these differences of opinion. I don't know. Do you have any? What can we do better about that?
Yeah, that's tough. I think, one thing, I also think you hit the nail on the head. Like, watching the speeches from the conference, like MP Brison, excuse me, gave a really impassioned, well thought out, well researched, knowledgeable speech about the power of BCH and how it would uplift his community, how it would allow people to participate in e-commerce, all of these great things. And then you contrast it with St. Kitts Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew, and he kind of said, we are maybe looking at something maybe in the future, possibly, if my people support the thing. Thank you. Good night. Right. There's a huge difference between these two politicians. It was one guy saying BCH is awesome for all these reasons, and the other guy's like, we're gonna kind of look at something. And then, after that, I think people in the community have a lot of PTSD, and we've gone through so many attacks and betrayals and all of these things. I think for some people, it's going to be incredibly difficult to let go of just the assumption that everything is a scam when it's slightly different than what they expected. And unfortunately for MB Brison, he built up his standing in the community so well because he was so knowledgeable and he said all of the right things, that when it seemed like he dropped BCH like a stone without communicating, people just like, they got us again. It's another scam. We've been betrayed once again. It's the same story that we go through over and over again. How to combat that, I'm not sure if there's a lot of really good things we can do. Of course, communication is key. If he had said, hey, I'm looking at this other thing, maybe it'll go through, I'm not sure, that would have absolutely limited the shock that the community felt. But again, this comes up quite often. The people that are in the Telegram group, or even on Reddit, which is a far broader slice of people, are a very, very small subset of the people in the world who use BCH. The people that work really, really hard on developing BCH are generally not in Telegram, chatting all day. Like those of us who spend all day shit posting, we're not building as much as we could be. We're debating and we're trolling and we're shit posting. I don't think we're the people that you really need to worry about. As far as whether or not their opinion has turned on you specifically as a person. There are people in all groups who just love to dunk on anything they can. That's what they enjoy. As a moderator of several groups, I sort of have to again thread this needle or walk this line between like free speech and trolling, right? There's certainly people whose day-to-day joy is getting in fights with people, is causing drama, causing arguments, and that line is not clear, right? So from me, from my volunteer point of view, I don't want to stop people from discussing something that is controversial, but at the same time, I think that there is definitely a way that it should be done, which is respectful of the other people in the community. If you right away jump to it's a scam, he's a CIA agent, as people have said about me, if you jump into these conclusions right away, you're not going to have a discussion. Obviously threats of violence are completely unacceptable, but speculating about something is totally fine. There is a greater than 0% chance that like many politicians, he traded his influence for some reason, right? For something, for some gain. That could be a new water program or whatever that helps the people. Who knows? But you can't just jump right away to the conclusion that it's a scam and he's evil and he's sent by the KGB or whatever. It's just have an open discussion, but be respectful. And if you're not respectful, then don't be surprised if the community doesn't appreciate your lack of respect, your lack of decorum, and if we ask you to leave, or we don't even ask, we just make you leave. So, I mean, specifically in Telegram.
Can I ask for one clarifying point?
Yep.
And this is something that has kind of haunted my entire life, so I'm sorry for bringing you into my baggage.
Oh, no. 42. The answer is 42.
No. Like, so especially as a child, I remember being told, like, you've got to respect your elders, you got to respect people in authority positions, whatever. So I remember always, like, arguing, well, what's respect? And no one's going by the definition here. No one. So respect is a certain part of admiration, right? So I don't think we need to keep things respectful, but we should at least be able to be civil.
Fair point. I mean respect. I don't mean respect the individual as they're special in some way. I mean respect the community as something that you value and don't want to destroy. But I think you're correct. I think remain civil is probably a much better way to say it. Yes.
This is my own autism leaking through.
No. I think words are very important, and you're right. Remaining civil is super important. Of course, like he's not a politician of Japan, so his choices don't affect me. I don't vote for him or anything like that, so I don't have to respect him as a politician. But I do have to talk to him as a human being who deserves to be engaged with in a civil matter, because he hasn't come out saying like CheapLightning's an asshole and should be flogged in the street. Like, okay, then that's a different story. He maybe has a different opinion or a different stance, but yeah, it's very different than being disrespectful. So yeah, the civil conversation.
I mean, maybe this is just the same, problems that humanity is always struggling with, right? We're not inventing anything new here, but the lessons or the ways of cooperating in the Bitcoin Cash community are going to be critical. They are critical, and they're going to be critical going forward. And I think MP Brison himself is just in the position where he's right about the fact that the Bitcoin Cash community is going to have to learn to be more amenable to people who are in similar positions as him, and to not turn everything. His number one priority is not the Bitcoin Cash community. Of course, the Bitcoin Cash community, their number one priority is that, right? But he's got other things going on, and he can't spend all day babysitting his communication with us. Now, that's not to say he can't do anything about it, or that he shouldn't also take responsibility to the extent that he wants the support of the Bitcoin Cash community. That's a two-way street, right? But I think as much as we are deep in the weeds all day, every day, trying to push things forward just inch by inch and the global adoption metric, we have to be better about dealing with people who are joining the community, who have all kinds of opinions and incentives and different actions and motivations. Obviously not 100% of that is going to line up with any individual other person's thoughts of this is the way it should be done, or the way I tend to think of it is in a very sort of holistic manner. Is it moving the world towards global crypto adoption, and sort of by proxy BCH? Because as the more and more of the world uses crypto, I have no doubt that Bitcoin Cash will be discovered as one of the easiest, best working, most functional options. So if people are at least getting the idea of crypto, that's just a precursor to getting them into Bitcoin Cash specifically. You can't be too prescriptive about the way things happen. I think that's another thing that plagues the BCH community a lot, is individuals have very strong ideas about, well, it'll happen like this, and then 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 that's how everybody will get the message. No, it's certainly not going to happen like that at all. And if the history of crypto has shown anything, it's that it's going to happen in the messiest, most confused, most ridiculous way possible. But at the end of the day, it does keep getting there, right? And so, yeah, I just think that's something for people in the community to consider in the aftermath of this, and to try and be more circumspect when this happens again in the future, because it's going to, right?
It is also emergent, though, and as we get more and more people into the community, the people that have PTSD from the BTC fork will be more and more diluted, and that's not a bad thing. There will be more voices, and there are some people who used to be extremely vocal and extremely negative all the time who don't participate so much anymore, because their particular points don't really vibrate with how the community is today. They may be off in their own corner, being angry somewhere, but as far as main chat, they've I guess for one reason or another decided that it's not worth the effort to be angry in chat all the time. And I think as we get more new blood, these kinds of fights will probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, claws crossed, will be less and less. So
Yeah, but there will. My point is that there's always going to be that. So, for instance, recently, Callisti and I have done these spaces with some of the BSV people, right? And when we said, "Oh, we're going to do that," suddenly there was a huge, "Oh, not these scammers, not talking to them. You're inviting them back in. They're going to come in and create drama and blah 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 blah." And yes, I understand that there was some risk of that, or that who you're associating with or who you're discussing things with is a matter of public record, and it does play into everything else. Right now, the way I saw that was, okay, I'm going to talk to them, I'm going to be reasonable. Maybe they will or won't be reasonable. I'm not in control of that, but there's only two options. Either they are reasonable, in which case with two reasonable people you have a reasonable discussion, or they're not going to be reasonable, in which case that reflects poorly on them and it reflects well on us, because you're taking the higher ground, being the more reasonable person. So I thought it was all very manageable and the risk was very low, but a lot of people were quite on edge about that. And what was interesting was it did go well and it went fine for the most part. And then even after that had happened, there was still people like, "Why are you doing that? That was stupid, blah, blah, blah. Don't do it again." And it's like, can you not see that in your perception of how things should be done, or whatever baggage or whatever, maybe somebody was an asshole to you, but that was a different person at a different time, years ago in a different context. And now we have a fresh opportunity with new people. Okay, maybe they're under a similar banner that you are already, trained to associate as everything with that is evil, but that's not really the case. And what has come out of that has been, we've been seeing, obviously we talked to Grant from the Litecoin community, we talked to the BSV people, the door is slowly opening up and there is more mixing of these communities, which I think is only going to be a good thing, because Bitcoin Cash doesn't need to be its own protectionist, maximalist little haven. That's exactly how we stay niche and irrelevant. So I think that's just another example of the same thing, where people should be very aware of when new people come in or new ideas are tried, you have to give them a bit of leeway to see if it works out. If you don't want to be involved, don't put your money, don't put your time, don't put your focus into whatever you don't agree with. But if the community is trying something new and different, in this case, maybe it's, we're going to get TRON adopted in St. Maarten, and then that'll make all the politicians think, wow, this crypto thing wasn't so bad. Bitcoin Cash can be next up, maybe that's how it goes down. But there's no chance of that happening unless you give it time to grow and work, without just jumping on it immediately, because it's not the way that you preconceived things to exactly happen. So
I agree.
I'm just very aware of
with most of what you say, but in my defense, as one of the people who were quite vocal about I guess opposing this meeting of minds, it was originally sold as a merge, and I think a lot of the misunderstanding came from the lack of clarity of what that meant and how it was being marketed as a reunification of chains and coins, and that can be interpreted, and definitely was interpreted by many people, as we're going to give them a seat at the table to discuss the future of BCH and help direct the future of BCH. And for a lot of people who went through the pre SV times, that's hell. It's just hell. Excuse me. So yeah, I don't think anybody is really opposed to the meeting of sane individuals to have a discussion. I think the fire was lit under the word merge and the misunderstanding of what your original intention was.
But the thing is, that was effective, right? It got a lot of engagement. A lot of people were interested in it. A lot of people were checking it out. Maybe they had their misconstrued idea of what we were trying to do, and maybe some of them were opposed to that, but some of them were also interested in that. And one way or another, they thought, okay, let's have a look at what's going on here. It was innovative. It is breaking new ground. There has not been in the crypto space,
Yes.
that kind of proactive intra-coin cooperation.
But it also
that's
wasn't
not
free.
never been happened. What
right?
do you mean?
So, well, I mean, the choice was made to market these discussions as a merge between the chains, right? That's how it was decided to be marketed, right? And it did bring in a lot of views. It brought in a lot of new discussion. But the cost was all of the drama that came associated with that, right? That was the cost. That time and effort that was spent debating whether it should happen or not, because of the lack of clarity of what your intention was at the beginning, caused all of the drama that happened, right? So yes, it did increase engagement. It was what's the word? Not inspiring. It was inciting. I don't know. There's a better word, but all of the negativity, all of the drama comes with that. And that's yes, all news is good news, I guess. You got a bunch of new people, but the drama that came with it was the cost of it, of using that sort of inflammatory. That's the word I'm looking for. That inflammatory language is, it comes with a cost, and so if people don't understand the intention of what you're doing right away, and you use a word like merge or reunite or unify or any of these things, people are going to misunderstand, because that sounds like different things to different people. If you said open discussion between BCH and BSV, that's a very different thing than merge, right? So yeah, I think that
but if we'd done that, if we'd done it, and I mean we did, that is what we said, and
yep.
yeah, it wasn't, at least I didn't feel like there was any, I wasn't heavily pushing that, because I mentioned it, but I wasn't pushing it. My point is that people need to try. There's no guarantee about any of this, but they need to at least try to see when well-intentioned actors in the space are mixing it up or are shooting for something new, to just don't bloody fire up the
the hate machine.
Don't set, yeah, exactly. Just don't set the fuse on the dynamite like 5 seconds later. Just chill out and just let it happen. And the same thing with MP Brison. I'm not saying that for me I had any grand problems with any of this either. My point is that this is going to be a recurring pattern, and especially for people who've been in the community for a long time, which includes me, by the way, but certainly there was some points I was more or less involved, is it's very easy to be annoyed, just like anything, at innovators, just in the same way that everything in the world has a conservative, side of things were done this way, and they were done this way because it's time tested and it works, and we'd learned a lot of lessons to get to that point. And then somebody comes along with something and says, why don't we try and do it this way? Well, some of the time that's smart, and it's like, well, that's progress. That's how you get progress, is you try new things. And a lot of the time it's not. It's like, you're an idiot. You just don't understand how things got to the point that they got to. There's we've already been down that road, or we've already, that experiment has already failed. Like, please stop trying to bring a dead horse back, right? So it's just quite important to me, I think, that Bitcoin Cash has definitely not suffering at the moment on that pendulum between conservation and innovation. It's clearly a more conservative chain. There's clearly a lot of long timers, a lot of people with very strong ideas about how things have or shouldn't be done, or what exactly went wrong in the past. But that also keeps it locked in this somewhat stagnant, not exactly, but to some degree, it makes it hard for new people to come in, to bring new ideas, or to try something different. So that's really just my point, and my message to the listeners is, to the extent that you're able to, just be a bit more willing or a bit more tolerant of somebody doing things for BCH to progress the movement in a well-intentioned way, in a way that might not be how you expect it should be done, or how it should be marketed, or how it should be spread, because that's by definition, how it gets to new audiences is a new approach that speaks to a different group of people. So that's kind of by the by, but that's just a separate thing. All right. So anyway, the point is we'll talk to MP Brison next week and get his thoughts and opinions and background on what is happening. And I will also, of course, say to him, yeah, okay, maybe you could be more proactive about talking to the community. But this is something we should strive to find good ways to handle, because it's going to happen over and over again, I think. All right, so community comment of the week comes from Pat Walls, who is some sort of internet entrepreneur guy. And he made a tweet which said very simply, shout out to all the people who said I got lucky. And then he has a screenshot of his GitHub profile from 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. And every year GitHub, which is a code repository where you put up your software, they have a graph of how many contributions you make. So sort of a kind of proxy for how much work you've done. And the square goes green, and it gets darker if you have more things, more code commits done, right? So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got 6 years of not every single day, but,
almost
4 or 5 days a week, almost every day, putting in work over and over and over and over and over again. And of course, at the end of the day, some people are still, oh, you're just lucky, right? And I wanted to just bring this up because I thought it's very telling of the 2-year anniversary of the podcast, of the Bitcoin Cash community overall, and just anybody who's trying to do anything, right? Is that people see the result, they don't see the process. And the process is often long and it involves a lot of work. And
drama,
it's very
and blood.
Yeah, drama, exactly. And arguing and fighting. But you do need to embrace that process, right? Because that's only how you make forward movement on anything. It's going to be hard work, and a lot of people are not going to recognize or understand everything that went into it. And that's why these issues can set people off so easily, because what to you is a throwaway comment in Telegram, to them is hitting on 5 years of working every day to build up this thing that they see is now going off the rails, right? So I just thought that was an interesting idea to reflect on as well too.
Sure. It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, well, I guess we're gonna. It's also funny just because it was 2017. That was when the BCH, split originally happened, and here we are, like 5, 6 years
of hard work. I have to say, this is your 2-year anniversary show. When you first came on the scene and you first did your first video, I was like, oh, this guy, he's calling himself the Bitcoin Cash podcast, and he's just using like a webcam, doesn't even have a mic. It's so dark. Like, this is not going to work. That was my initial impression of you, was like, this is low quality. It's not going to work. But, every episode, you got better and better and better. And, I don't know what episode it was where I subscribed, but, you had an idea and you put it out there. And I recently rewatched the first episode, and you're like, hopefully
it's a good one. It's a banger.
It's good. You said, like, hopefully this is the first of many, or something to that effect. And 2 years later, and 70 episodes, you're still here, and you're doing awesome work. And I really appreciate all the hard work and effort that you've put in. And every time I see there's a new episode, I'm glad to watch it. So thank you for all of your hard work, and please keep going.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And same to Jett, and also the same to guys who chip in behind the scenes. Omar, Luis, Shant, Korg, thank you very much, because a lot goes into it. But we do just try and keep making it better and better. And I hope, over the next year, over the next 2 years, it's gonna get even better. There's a lot of I have tons of ideas. It's really just about having the time and energy to do all of them, along with
I hear you.
keeping the existing thing running. The first thing is you got to keep it all running, and then once you've done all that, that's like, okay, now we're back to baseline. Now we've got the chance to change it up and mix things up. All right, so we got meme of the week coming from Luke Pryor. Like I said, he will be back on the show for a meme competition sometime this year. We'll just see when when we have the chance. But he posted in the Price Telegram group this meme of Abraham Lincoln, and says, "If you're in crypto for the Lambos, you must also be ready for the ramen." Abraham Lincoln. And I just find these these memes kind of funny, because it's like people trying to people are humorously trying to leech credibility, when they put some quote by Jesus or by Martin Luther King or by whatever, anybody like that. I always find it really funny, the contrast of a modern idea or something that's frivolous with this historic serious figures. And I think it's worth everybody reflecting on that as well too, because we're here, and I feel like we were talking about the price at the start. Maybe things are getting bullish. Maybe 2023 and 2024 are going to be much better years. 2021 and 2022, there was a lot of drama. There was a lot of price crashing. There was a lot of exchanges going bust. There was just disaster here, there, and everywhere. And I've been eating ramen. I don't know about anybody else, but certainly it's been more of a ramen 2 years than a Lambo 2 years. But everything has a season. Yeah, exactly. Everything has a season. So I'm feeling optimistic that maybe it's going to be a better couple of years. And it's always nice, to be on a rising tide instead of a falling one, basically, right? So, it's just as simple as that. I guess I just wanted to make that the meme of the week. It made me laugh. Luke Pryor, you can all look out for that. And message to the community. So I don't know, you would have done a few of these now, actually, but we might have to make a compilation video of over time with the date at the bottom and see if things have trended in a certain direction subconsciously, over that time. But what does the community need to hear?
I think we touched on a lot of it. I think being civil. Thank you, Jett. Is really important. Civility is going to be how we succeed. You're not going to win any friends by calling them an ass the day they show up in the community. And on that note, there is certainly new people in the community. There's new blood. I think I don't know if we're in phase 3 or the Renaissance or whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of new people. We started off. Some people are still around from day one, but we've passed the baton again and again and again to different people, and I think the people who are here today, the someones who are doing the hard work, that are driving us forward. Not everybody can, but the people that are doing an amazing job. I respect them. I love them. They're fantastic people. And if you want to participate, you can. As I've said many, many times, probably even the last time I was on the show, I started off as just a merchant. I don't have any power or any dev ability or any of these things. I just sold junk from Japan online. Who would listen to my opinion? My opinion doesn't mean anything. I'm just a cat, right? But all it takes is a little bit of effort. Everybody needs a helping hand. If you have an idea, find people who want to help with your idea. If you don't have an idea but you have some skills, find somebody who needs help. There's always going to be a need for more help. if you want to contribute, the only thing that's stopping you is you. And even little tiny things, make some memes, right? We need more content online. Talk about what you love about BCH on social media. We need to get out of our shell. Like I love read.cash, but we post almost exclusively our stuff in our own echo chamber. We need to get out there, start posting on Medium, start expand. You don't need to preach to the choir, right? So everybody that's hardcore into BCH already knows BCH is awesome. Your memes are great, but post them outside too. Those are the people that need to see them. And I also think connected to a lot of what we discussed today, I really want to see conversation shift from BTC sucks to BCH is awesome. And I know that a lot of people are still really, really just every day thinking about how bad BTC is and how much they hurt us and et cetera, et cetera. These are all fine, valid points, but BTC dominance is going down. It's boomer coin. It's not going to be around. Dunking on them is not going to win us any new people. The vast majority of people on Earth don't care about BTC and the hash war. Tell people why BCH is awesome. Show them it's awesome, and we'll win a lot more hearts that way than by being a naggy ex-girlfriend. So let's try and be positive. And same with when new people join the community. If they have great ideas, support them. If they have terrible ideas, try and encourage them to have good ideas in a very civil and kind manner. Looking back at my post history as well, when I first joined chats and Telegram, I said a lot of cringy stuff, and I had some great ideas that I thought were amazing, but over time I learned why those ideas were not good or maybe impossible. So feel free to ask for people's wisdom if you are not sure about something. So that wasn't really a short message. Be good. There you go. There's a be good. That's my message. Be good.
It's simple, yeah, and just
oh
stick
no, wait.
out.
I'm changing. I take that back. Please delete it. Edit this out. We're not live, right? My message to the community is be someone. There we go.
Be someone. Take responsibility. Be someone. Make it happen. Yeah, and just stick with it because you're gonna Rome wasn't built in a day, right? Bitcoin Cash wasn't built in a day. So you gotta just keep hammering away at it and keep iterating and adapting what you've already got, because the first version might suck, like that first version of the podcast, but there's a special place in my heart for that episode. I've gone back and watched it several times because it does, there's something to it, even as crappy as it is.
Of course.
All right, cool. That will do it for the show then. I got to shout out our patrons, Ricky and HP, legends. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the donators. Obviously, everybody sending in sats has got the show as far as it has. That's definitely for sure. Start guide, FAQ links at bitcoincashpodcast.com. Don't forget to send me an email, jeremy@bitcoincashpodcast.com. If you want to win this shirt, put your name and address and a super cool Bitcoin story that I can read out on air. Whoever has the Bitcoin coolest story will win a t-shirt. So for 10 seconds of your time, that's a pretty good trade. And my shout out this week goes to Bitcoin Cash TV, who retweeted us and then cash rained it to get a bunch of extra reach onto it, and also subscribed with Prime on the Twitch. So thank you very much. Excellent. Got all these. I've never even seen all these emojis. Glitch Cat and Cash Rain has its own Twitch emoji. I got to get some of these on our channel. I've never even seen any of them. Anyway, shout out another excellent Bitcoin Cash content creator. So you can check that out on Bitcoin Cash TV. CheapLightning, who's your shout outs for?
I'm going to give a big shout out to Sayoshi Nakamario. Without him, Flipwatch would still be an ugly pile of garbage that nobody should ever visit. It looks 10 billion times better now than when I was working on it by myself. Also, shout out to other people who've helped the project as far as providing information. Actually, on the website itself, there is a form on the top right that you can submit information. So if you ran a Flipstarter in the past and you want to provide some kind of documentation about your fund, where your funds went, et cetera, feel free to submit your information there. And if you have some of the opposite kind of information, photo evidence about somebody doing something less good with their Flipstarter funds, feel free to submit evidence there as well and add it to the research. So big shout out to Sayoshi. Thank you so much.
Jett, last one.
I don't have a shout out for this one, but if you want to be my future shout out, I don't have the time to do like anything recently.
All those podcasts you listen to, is like 300 of them.
I listen to those while I'm working, by the way. It's been a hassle. Like, since I've been back from St. Kitts, I've been slammed. But so I've been doing, I think I mentioned this on one other podcast earlier. I've been doing some BIP 70 work for Zapit. And I have, I think, most of the heavy lifting down on the last like 2 steps of the protocol, where we have to actually sign the transaction, make a post request to the server, and then actually broadcast it. But like I said, I have no time. So if anyone wants to do even the smallest bit of work, that would help me out fantastic, like greatly. And like, this isn't paid work, by the way. I'm doing this for free. It's a feature that I want in Zapit. So, you know, if that's interesting to you, and you know, you don't have to know Dart. Dart is easy enough to pick up. So if you have any kind of programming expertise and are interested in getting maybe a little more familiar with how Bitcoin works, then this is a good opportunity to learn. And I've got no problem like holding hands for as much as I know anyway. And a lot of my stuff recently has been just pestering people in Telegram and being like, hey, I've got this string, which is hex encoded. What do I do with it to get a list of bytes or something that I need? So I know a lot of developers get like feelings of imposter syndrome and all that. Don't worry about it. We're both idiots here. We'll figure it out. We'll get something good and battle tested. So yeah, that's it. If you want to be a future shout out, shoot me a message on Telegram. Probably is the best bet.
That's it. Good stuff. And yeah, the devs, we got a lot of action going on there. I've been seeing a lot of people chatting, a lot of people very fired up about it. Obviously, we got the cash tokens stuff coming. There's some real energy and hard work going in there. And as much as we're all, salty about whether the market is or is not loving Bitcoin Cash at any one time, just consistently year after year putting in real work on real projects is what's going to lift us up to the top. So yeah, good effort to everyone chipping in on that front. All right, that'll do it. Until next time.
Yep.
The greatest story the world has ever known. The rise and rise of Bitcoin. 2022.
A single chance for the world, a single moment in time. Bankers captures all, our cryptocurrency flies. Gets to decide, Phoenix fly from the flame. Bitcoin BCH, forever changing the game.
An underdog story everyone trying to deny. Bitcoin revolution, crypto trade on the rise. Then they stole our brand name and tried to push us aside. Cause they said it was over, that we'd never survive. Maybe there was a world that was the end of the ride. But this